And without much ado, let's kick it. Let's get into it. All right, this is 3 proven strategies and philosophies for misbehaviors. And I am going to kick this off strong. I'm going to wake you up. I'm going to get you into the mood to talk about misbehavior and interventions and philosophical ideas related to both with, you got it, an icebreaker. Here is our icebreaker. A statement will appear on the screen. In the chat, I want you to write agree or disagree. No middle ground, just agree or disagree. There's no right or wrong answer. So take a little bit of that sting off you like, oh, I don't want people to judge me. There's no right or wrong answer. No cap, as the young folks say. There is no right or wrong answer. Whatever you feel, write it. Agree or disagree. I want you to focus on where is it that you are leaning? Where is it? Where's your mind? Where's your heart going? Okay. So let's get started with the first statement. Write agree or disagree in the chat. First statement. If a kid turns in their homework late, it's not a big deal. Do you agree or do you disagree? No right or wrong answer. Take the stress, take the sting off. There's no right or wrong answer in the chat. Write, do you agree or do you disagree? Thank you. Got some disagrees in there. Kid turns in their homework late. It's not a big deal. Wait on a couple more. Do you agree or do you disagree? All right. Most of us are going towards disagree. It's all right. Okay. All right. Let's go to the next one. If a kid misuses their cell phone, it should be taken away. If a kid misuses their cell phone, it should be taken away. Period. Doesn't matter. Agree, disagree, write your answer in the chat. What do you think? No right or wrong answer. Just focus on where it is that you're leaning as you see these statements. Okay. Got a lot of agrees in there that time. Next one. It is age appropriate for a preteen to cuss. That's what they do. Or 11 or 10. They're trying to figure out and navigate language. It's age appropriate. Do you agree? Do you disagree? All right, getting a little bit of variance this time. Got some agree, got some disagree. That's good. I want you to focus on where it is that you are leaning as you hear these statements. So that's going to be our last one for this icebreaker. And let me position you with 2 statements. One, we all have different types of philosophies when it comes to misbehavior. We all have different types, and that's okay. And that's why I asked you to not get so caught up on, oh, is this the right answer? Is this the wrong answer? I want you to focus on how you're leaning as you hear these misbehaviors. And I put that word philosophy in the title for a reason. It's, do you know what your philosophy on misbehavior is? That might seem like, oh, someone just asked me a random question. When you apply for a teaching position, I don't care which school you go to, they're going to ask you, what's your education philosophy? Now, I imagine that some of us in this room probably aren't teachers. Most of us in this room are parents. That's totally fine. But just know that teachers, folks who are in charge or who are responsible for managing behavior on a daily basis, we ask them, hey, what's your philosophy on misbehavior? What's your philosophy on education? That's very important. And let me explain to you why your philosophy on misbehavior is so important. When you think of the word philosophy, when you hear it, you start to think of things like Plato, you think of Socrates, you think of philosophical ideas. Philosophy simply means your beliefs, what you believe, what's in your heart, what's true to you. And when we're thinking about behavior, it's important to know what you believe, what's in your mind, what's in your heart, because what you believe is going to impact your actions. let me make this plain for you. If you think that, or if you believe that it is age appropriate for a child to cuss, when your teenager cusses, you might, well, it's okay, it's fine. But if you think that that's not okay and your child cusses, you might install a very serious consequence. And it's very important to know, hey, this is what I believe. This is what comes to my mind when it comes to misbehavior, because that is going to impact our consequences. It's going to impact how we manage and we deal with our kids. And overall, the true person or the true group that's going to be impacted by our philosophy, our beliefs about misbehavior, it's our kids. And what you will find, and what you probably already know, is that oftentimes as adults, our philosophies, our beliefs on misbehavior, sometimes they aren't the best practices for managing misbehavior. Sometimes we're off a little bit. And if we're honest, we know that, I don't know everything and I need to learn a little bit more. So today, what I want to drill into you is, do you know what your philosophy on misbehavior is? Because you are fulfilling that philosophy every single time you manage misbehavior. You're probably wondering, okay, who's this guy? Why should I listen to him about misbehavior? What are his qualifications? You see a few on the screen. My name is Wesley Baker. I'm an education consultant, been a former teacher, former school administrator, K through 8. And at the same time, for my parents out there in Inglewood who have teenagers, I also taught high school, so I can definitely relate to what you are experiencing with a teenager as well. Been around kids and education and misbehavior for a long time. I served as a dean in DC. You'll see in bold, that's my record. 0% expulsion rate, 9% suspension rate, never lost a kid. And trust me and believe that I've dealt with some extreme misbehavior issues as a dean. Worked in schools in California, in Texas, and in DC. I've seen a wide gamut of misbehaviors and a gamut of approaches to it. And also, just in case you're thinking, wow, he's never lost a kid, does that mean that he's kind of like, hunky-dory, just let stuff go? Please believe that's not the case. And if you were to talk to any of my former students, they would let you know, oh, no, he doesn't just let stuff go. He's very serious about misbehavior. I got my training in behavior management from the International Institute of Restorative Practices, also a master's in public administration. So I come to you very confident in this subject, but also humble for the opportunity to share these philosophies and these strategies with you. Before we move on, again, I want to remind you of the chat option. I do have a couple of friends in the room that are monitoring the chat to let me know if a question arises. So feel free to ask any questions, to make any comments, especially comments. Let me know if what I'm saying is landing with you, if something is really resonating with you, let me know. Our agenda for today, we just talked about the impact of philosophy, and then next we're going to move into our 3 philosophies and strategies: unspoken rules, the salt shaker, lagging skills, and then we'll wrap it up with a few closing items. Today, you will learn philosophies and strategies related to child misbehavior and reflect on your behavior management practices. Now, I know as you're reading some of those words, it's like, man, it leans more to like a teacher or a school administrator. I'm bringing this to you because right now, most of us are dealing with hybrid learning, distance learning, and we've gone from parent to like parent teacher or parent tutor. And how we dealt with, hey, clean your room, is a little bit different from how we're dealing with a child who's struggling to get started on a Zoom call, or a child who's struggling to participate during their online learning or complete their homework. I know that you're experiencing a lot of stuff that's new to you, and you need some new training on how to deal with these misbehaviors like a teacher would in a learning environment. Let's get started with our first philosophy, and it's one of my favorites. It comes from Dr. Les and Leslie Perot. It's this concept, this philosophy that unspoken rules cause misbehavior. Unspoken rules cause misbehavior. Now, as I just said that, you probably thought, well, duh, yeah, if you don't tell a kid a rule, then they're going to break it. Not saying that precisely. Let me show you one of my unspoken rules. Unspoken rule that I have, very important to me, bread, it goes in the fridge. That's an unspoken rule in my house. There's no bread box. You don't put bread on the counter. Bread goes into the refrigerator. That's my rule. And I've had that rule forever. And recently moved in with my partner, loving relationship. And one day she was making a sandwich. She made a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, everything was fine. She sat down to eat that sandwich and she left the bread on the counter. And when I saw that, I said, babe's so sweet. She left the bread on the counter. Let me go ahead and grab the bread and wrap it up and put it in the refrigerator. So absent-minded, it's okay. And then about a week later, the bread was back on the counter when she made a sandwich. I said, man, you know, babe used to be more careful. You know, she left the bread out. Let's put the bread back in the refrigerator. And then another week passed, and that bread was back on that counter. And some of you probably know I wasn't as optimistic and giving in my thoughts about my loving spouse. Said, what is going on with her? She's up here wasting money, gonna let the bread go bad. Oh my God, I keep having to pick up this bread. Oh, my goodness. And so I go to her. I said, babe, you left the bread on the counter. You didn't put the bread back in your fridge. She said to me, Wesley, who puts bread in the refrigerator? And I said, everybody does. Everybody puts bread in the refrigerator. What are you talking about? No, I've never put bread in the refrigerator. And I said to myself, oh my God, what is she talking about? Of course the bread goes in the refrigerator. You do that so it doesn't get moldy. You do that so, you know, little critters or anything doesn't get into your bread. That was my experience. And like her, you're probably thinking, yeah, I don't put my bread in the refrigerator. It sits in the bread basket like everyone else. But for me, in my experience, my life, growing up where I grew up, growing up with my family, it's an unspoken rule. I don't even have to say it. No one has to say that the bread goes in the refrigerator. It just goes there. And I didn't even know that that was a real rule. I didn't know that that was a rule that I had in myself until someone broke it. And as a parent, and I'm going to keep this word going, as a parent teacher, what you are experiencing right now is a new scenario, and your children are breaking new rules that you're just like, I can't believe they did that. It's an unspoken rule. It's a rule that you may have just had and you didn't know until someone broke it. Let's keep going with our presentation. Note takers, here's a definition for you, and I'll keep the screen there for a second for folks who want to jot that down. Unspoken rules are the rules and needs people develop from their own personal experiences that they may or may not be aware of until an unsuspecting individual breaks the rule. It happens every day in education. Constantly. I'll talk to a teacher. I told him to sit down and he didn't sit down. Oh, what did you say? I said, do you want to sit down? All right, you said, do you want to sit down? Yeah, he knows what I mean. Oh, okay. You sure? In your house, when you grew up, your mom said, hey, do you want to sit down? Do you want to be quiet? And that meant be quiet and sit down. Doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. So what I want you to start gathering right now as we dive deeper into this philosophy, what rules has your child broken in the past 8 or 9 months since you've been distance learning? Are they unspoken rules? Are the rules that you've expressly taught? Are they rules that you grew up with? Had those rules been broken before? could have an unspoken rules phenomenon. Let me give you a scenario. Oh, and let me pause here for a second. Teachers, parents, we have unspoken rules and needs related to behavior based off of how we were raised, just like my bread issue. Here's my scenario. Jamario, your oldest, has just entered his class Zoom room. You notice that he is slumped over in his seat. He's like this. He's not sitting the way you would like for him to sit. Questions in red. In this scenario, what just came to your mind about Jamario? As Jamario's sitting like this and they're in their Zoom room, what just came to your mind? Are you thinking Jamario is lazy? Are you thinking Jamario is disrespectful? Are you thinking Jamario must be tired? Are you thinking what Jamario's uninterested? Thank you, Sophia. You could be thinking a range of things about this behavior. I also want to put this other thought. What are you thinking about yourself as a parent teacher? Here it is. Your child's in this Zoom room and they're like this, and you're 5 feet away. Are you thinking, man, I haven't taught my child how to show up in a Zoom meeting? Are you thinking that your child isn't also mindful of you being in the room? You think, like, I would think that Jamario would sit up since I'm close by. What's going through your head? Let's continue on with this example. You tell Jamario to sit up. Sit up. He sits up partially. Now he's like this, but not all the way up. He's not sitting in that way that's in your mind. It's not right here. Now what are you thinking? You said sit up. You told Jamario to sit up, and he went right here. Are you thinking, man, Jamario's defiant this morning? Are you thinking, oh, he did sit up. That's sitting up. What's going through your head? You're probably imagining what a parent, what a teacher is experiencing when that happens. We start rehearsing in our head what the other person is thinking, just like I did with my bread. And before I go to the next slide, what about, side note on the bottom, what about that phrase, sit up? I'm not going to hop on it too much because in the next philosophy, we'll talk about directions. But what does sit up mean? We tell kids that all the time. What does that mean? Is this sitting up? Is this sitting up? Is this sitting up? What does sit up mean? What does be quiet mean? Is that silent or is that quiet? Because right now I'm being quiet. What does pay attention mean? What does stop that mean? You must understand the power of unspoken rules. How we expect other people to behave sometimes is not based off of a universal truth. It's based off of our truth. Keeping on with the scenario, I'm almost wrapping it up. Stay with me. You have explained how you want Jamario to sit, kind of. But why do you want him to sit that way? Why do you want him to sit the way that you're thinking a child should sit up during their lesson? Why do you want them to sit that way? Is it because, yeah, when a child sits up that way, they learn better. They have more attention. Or is it because you want Jamario to sit up because you want Jamario to be mindful of other people's perspective of him? That this is a bad representation of who he is. That this is a bad representation of respect. This is a bad representation of who I am as a parent. It's respectful to sit up that way. You're thinking about your past experiences. Growing up, 80s, 90s, if you're with me, you went to class and you sat there like this and you gave your teacher an apple, and that's just how you grew up and that's how you want it to continue to be. Why it's so important for our rules. So important. How our beliefs and our philosophy on misbehavior have been developed in us will impact our actions towards those behaviors. If you believe that this is highly disrespectful for Jamario to do this, I can't believe he would sit there and disrespect that teacher like that, how do you think you're about to respond to Jamario? Jamario, sit up. I can't believe you would sit there and do. And meanwhile, Jamario's thinking, I'm tired. It's a Zoom meeting. The other kids are sitting that way. The teacher said I can sit this way. Reflection question is for you on the screen. How are my beliefs or philosophy about X, whatever it might be, how your child writes their name, how your child sits up, how they talk to adults, how are my beliefs and philosophy about X impacting my relationship with my kids? You're a parent teacher now. That living room is now the learning environment. New rules have popped up. There are new rules. And before you get truly frustrated like I did with that bread, I want you to consider, is there an unspoken rule that has just been broken? And why do I want my child to behave in this certain way? When I'm training teachers on how a child enters the classroom, on how a child turns in paper, this pops up every single time. Go with that example before I move on to the next philosophy. Some teachers, kids enter in the room, you say good morning. Some teachers, kids enter into the room, ghost town, silence. For that first teacher, you say good morning because it's welcoming and it makes the child feel supported and trusting and like they're in a caring environment. The other teacher, no, you want them to be silent so they can really focus and get straight to the warm-up. Both are right. I want you to think, just like in the icebreaker, where am I leaning with these unspoken and these broken rules that my child is having difficulty with in the past few months? Let's move on to our next philosophy. And I'm moving directly to the folks who are thinking, Wesley, those unspoken rules sound great. Great concept, beautiful, awesome. But I've made it painstakingly clear to my child how I want them to sit up. I've explained to them why I want them to sit up, and I've thought about and considered why they need to sit up. It's respectful, and it's going to help them learn better. Unspoken rules isn't really sitting with me all the way. Okay, got you. Let's move to our next philosophy. To introduce this next philosophy, I'm going to talk about my old manager back in San Antonio, just for his protection. I'm just going to call him Jeff. But Jeff was my manager when I was working at Kona Grill. It's a Japanese sushi restaurant. I was a service assistant at the time, paying my way through school. Jeff was born in San Antonio, so he really loved the location of the restaurant. He loved his customers. Jeff was very organized and just by the book, a great manager. He was respectful to everyone. And of course, he was very passionate about soy sauce. And if you think about any of the managers that you've experienced in your life, those are the things that you want. You want them very organized, you want them respectful, and you want them passionate about soy sauce. If they don't have those three things, as a restaurant manager, how are they going to succeed? I'm going somewhere. Jeff subscribed to the salt shaker theory. It's why he was so successful as a manager. What's the salt shaker theory, Wesley? The salt shaker theory comes from Danny Meyer. If you've been to Shake Shack, you have experienced the salt shaker theory. It's created by Danny Meyer. Danny Meyer is the founder of Shake Shack and the umbrella company, get up the top of my head, the umbrella company that owns Shake Shack and a few other national restaurants that you've been to. Danny Meyer is the founder of those restaurants. And in order to train his managers, regional directors, he wrote a book called Setting the Table. And in that book is a guide for his managers, for his directors on this is how we are going to operate our restaurants. This is how we are going to manage our people. This is how we are going to take care of the customer. And one of those rules that he has, or one of those theories and concepts, is misbehavior has to happen. It's the salt shaker theory. Misbehavior from your employee, it has to happen. Misbehavior from the customer, it has to happen. It's going to happen. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the salt shaker theory. Note takers, I'll keep this slide up here for a second for you. Here are 3 basic tenets of the salt shaker management theory. First piece, excuse me, successful restaurants are managed with particulars. Like, this is how all of the silverware will be folded into this napkin. Have you ever been to that restaurant and all but one of the silverware pieces are wrapped up the same way, and you're just looking like, ooh, why is that one wrapped differently? And in your mind, you start thinking like, did someone use this silverware already? At Danny Meyer's restaurant, all that silverware is wrapped the same way. Same thing applies to the salt shakers. If you go into a Shake Shack, later on today or tomorrow, look at where the salt shakers are located on each table. I guarantee you those salt shakers are all in the same spot in each table, in each city, each state in this country. At Shake Shack, they are all in the same spot. Successful restaurants are managed with particulars. You already know where I'm about to go, right? Next piece though, successful managers don't get highly upset. They accept their role. Woo! This is the crux of the salt shaker theory. This is where people struggle initially, but once they get it, they're golden. Danny Meyer teaches his managers that, hey, on your job description, what I wrote is you're going to have to coach your employees. Sometimes you're going to have to retrain them, and sometimes you're going to have to discipline them, because people are people, and sometimes they're going to be late, and sometimes they aren't going to care where the salt shaker should go, and sometimes they aren't going to wrap the napkins the same exact way. Why? One, maybe they just don't know how to at the same proficiency yet, so you might need to retrain them. Why? Sometimes they don't care as much as you do. You're getting paid a little bit more. You have more skin in the game for this restaurant. It's natural. They aren't going to want to do the same thing that you want to do. In a teacher's job description, it says, hey, you're going to manage behavior. You're going to manage the tension. And then when that happens later on in the school year, a teacher doesn't go, Jay Sean threw a pencil. Yeah, it's pretty much what an 8-year-old will do from time to time. You might throw a pencil. And Danny Meyer would teach his managers, people are going to move that salt shaker. Your employees may not set the table the correct way every time. Well, what do I do? Third point, successful managers apply constant, gentle pressure. Constant, gentle pressure for that salt shaker to go back into the center of the table. And Jeff, my boss back at Kona Grill, when I said that he was passionate about soy sauce, we were at a sushi restaurant and we had this red and these green soy sauce containers. Jeff wanted the red one on the left, he wanted the green one on the right, and they had to be in the center. And as I was resetting tables, sometimes we'll get really busy and I just put the salt shaker right here. I gotta get to this next table. It's not directly in the center, but you know, it's there, it's on the table. And as Jeff would just walk through the restaurant, when he saw that, he would say, hey, sauce center, sauce center, sauce center. He didn't say, why isn't the sauce in the center of the table? Wesley, put the soy sauce back in the center of the table. No. Constant, gentle pressure. Sauce center, sauce center. Thank you for the sauce center. Thank you so much. That's the salt shaker theory. All right, Wesley, sounds good. Bring it to my address. Bring it relevant to me as a parent teacher. Salt shaker management theory to learning environments. Your living room is a learning environment now. That bedroom is a learning environment. That kitchen is a learning environment now. Successful learning environments are also managed with particulars, like the transition, which you're probably struggling with a little bit, that transition from being online to doing homework. Child kind of struggles getting focused and getting ready to do their work. They're managed with particulars, like this is how we transition. You have 2 minutes and then we're gonna go over here. You're gonna start with this song, you're gonna start with this lesson, and then you're gonna move into your homework. Even in your home, you need transitions, you need particulars that express this is what we're about to do. Successful parent teachers don't get highly upset. You have to accept that role. Let me be humble. I didn't say they don't get upset. Being upset, being frustrated is natural. It's going to happen. It is a human emotion. But being highly upset when your child doesn't do X, Y, or Z is the difference. Understand that it's kind of a part of the game of being a parent teacher, of coaching, retraining, and disciplining a child. You're never going to get to that point where your child does every single thing correctly 24/7 of the day. It won't happen in the school. It's not going to happen in the home every single time too. Got to accept that fact. Accept that role. This is new. You're now teaching. You have different requirements in the home. It's going to happen. Now, Wesley, how do I deal with that? Goes into our last bullet point for the salt shaker theory. Again, successful parent teachers will apply constant, gentle pressure. You've seen this before. You've been to a kindergarten class and the teacher says, hey, crisscross applesauce. That's what they said. And then like clockwork, all the kids go, oh yeah, crisscross applesauce. Notice that the teacher didn't say, Johnny, cross your legs. Johnny, sit correctly. Now you've heard that before, right? And that's that teacher that's struggling. But that teacher who has it together, crisscross applesauce, crisscross applesauce. Notice that means that the kids weren't behaving correctly. They weren't sitting correctly. And that teacher understood and was okay. Like, that's a part of the game. A kindergartner has the wiggles. And from time to time, they're going to get out of crisscross applesauce. I'm going to constantly apply that pressure to get them back into crisscross applesauce. Let me give you a couple of real world examples that you're probably experiencing right now. So my example is laptops. When I was a teacher and I had Chromebooks in my classroom, I had a particular way that I wanted students to have their Chromebooks on their desk. So going with the salt shaker theory, define your center. Where should the salt shakers be in the center? In my classroom, kids should place their laptops in the middle of their desk and tilt it so that I can see their screen. That's what I needed. Those are my directions. Not sit up, not stop that. I need your laptop in the middle, in the center, tilt it so I can see it. I need to know that for myself. That's how I want these laptops to sit. I want you to think about the things that you're struggling with. How should your student start their homework? How should your student write their name? How should your student sit in front of the screen? Think of these different behavior issues and define where the center is. What should it look like? Next piece, again, accept the role. I understood as a teacher, this is going to be new. Kids are going to struggle. It's a laptop, and kids are going to want to get on ESPN and YouTube from time to time. It's going to happen. You were 10, you were 11 before. You may not want to be on Raz Kids all day. You may not want to be on Accelerator Reader all day. Got to accept that. That's my role, to make sure that I can see these screens so these kids can learn. I told him to get on that reading site and he didn't want to get on it. Of course he didn't want to get on it. That's a part of this age. Last piece. Apply constant, gentle pressure. So how I would always apply constant, gentle pressure with this laptop situation, I always walked around and said middle 45, middle 45, middle 45 meant 45 degrees. Middle of your desk, tilted 45 degrees. I didn't walk around saying, Shania, turn your screen. Jeffrey, I've already told you to turn that screen around. No. Middle 45, middle 45. Hey, I didn't say, hey, I need you to tilt your laptop. Too many words, too many directions. Just boom, middle 45. And notice here, I put it in the asterisk next to, or below it. Notice that I don't have a verb in that direction. Notice it isn't turn to middle 45. Notice that it's not move it to soft center. When I take the verb out, the action, it takes the sting of it being a redirection, a correction off. Instead, now it's just a reminder. It's, hey, middle 45. Hey, I'm moving on, middle 45. Hey, soft center. That is how you use the salt shaker theory. Understand what your center is, accept the role of what you're about to do, and apply that constant, gentle pressure. Not, hey, sit up. Whatever that might be, whatever your ease of words is for sitting up. I had a principle that I always used to say, feet back forward, feet back forward, feet back forward. That meant feet on the ground, back straight, looking forward. Takes the sting out rather than sit up straight. Two different things. Rinse, repeat, accept. No matter how many days I said middle 45 every day, as we moved into asynchronous time, I said middle 45 and let's get started. Rinse, repeat, accept. Just like Danny Meyer said, it's going to happen. You're going to get a new employee. Your employees are going to get a little bit of entropy and say, I don't really want to put the salt shaker in a certain place today. Rinse, repeat, accept it. So closing up our second philosophy, you need to define your salt shakers. What's happening in that learning environment that you need to move to center, and where is the center for you? And see the salt shaker as it is. It's just a salt shaker. It's something that you need to move back into the center. Everyone is dealing with this if you're dealing with management, behavior management, restaurant management. And of course, apply that constant, gentle pressure. Now, I still hear you. I hear you loud and clear. You're saying, Wesley, I understood unspoken rules. Maybe there are some things that are just in my own world and I need to think about the validity of them. I understand the salt shaker theory. I need to really define my center, just accept that my child might misbehave and give them those little words that's going to get them back into the center. But I've been doing that, Wesley. I've been doing it for about 8 months. I've been doing it for about 10 years, and it's not really working out. That's great. That's great because that's where I would come into play in your actual school. So I was a dean, restorative practices administrator. And for those most challenging, consistent cases of misbehavior, I had an approach. So if you are that person, here is your part of the training. This may be you. Still laugh every time I see this. This may be you. You're saying, I've already told this boy the salt shaker. I've already examined my unspoken rules. Wesley, no, this is not on me. What can I do about this child's misbehavior? Great. Last and final philosophy comes from Dr. Ross Green. If you go into your child's school tomorrow and look in their library for teachers, these books are in that library. They're a part of professional development for pretty much every teacher across the country. The philosophy is constant misbehavior indicates a lagging skill or unsolved problem. Constant misbehavior doesn't mean that you are a bad parent. Constant misbehavior doesn't mean that you are a bad teacher. Constant misbehavior doesn't mean that your child is innately bad. Constant misbehavior indicates that there is a skill that is lagging, that there is a problem that probably hasn't been identified and solved yet. I'm going to say that again because I feel like that might break a couple of people free. Constant misbehavior doesn't mean that you are a bad parent, doesn't mean that child is just innately bad. That means that there is a skill that needs to be dealt with. And that's where I would come in. How would I do that? Scenario for you. You have 3 kids in distance learning. Lupe, your middle child, is a 4th grader. She is very respectful to you, but has had multiple scuffles with her siblings. On multiple occasions, you have taught her how to use safe bodies and why it is important. You've done it all. You've done the unspoken rules. You've had the salt shaker moments, but she continues to get into scuffles. Ask yourself, what are you thinking right now? Are you thinking, man, we just don't have the answers for Lupe? Are you thinking, I've tried everything. What else am I missing? Lupe is just innately aggressive. What are you thinking? Let me tell you what I'm thinking. The first thing that I'm thinking when this type of situation pops up, Wesley, we need to deal with Corey. Corey keeps getting into fights. What's going on? He's just so bad. And also, let me side note for a second. This is where a lot of people will throw in these types of statements. Well, you know what's happening with him at home. Oh, well, you know he struggled with X, Y, or Z. It's not much that we can do there. I don't really know what to do. That's where people get hung up right there. And I'm on a different platform. That's when kids get lost in the system. What I start thinking is this: misbehavior hotspot. I first start thinking, when? When is this behavior happening? I mean the place. Don't just tell me, oh, it happened in class. During which class? During what part of the lesson? What time was it? What activity was it? Where is this misbehavior happening the most? That's what I'm thinking first. And I'll explain why that's important in a second. But that's the first thing. As you're thinking about that misbehavior that you're dealing with constantly, think, when is it happening? Location, time, activity. Get very narrow in details. Now, it's not going to be the same every single time, every situation, but think about where and when is it happening. Think about what is happening. What is the unspoken rule that is continuously being broken? Not just, hey, don't hit your brother. Don't hit other kids, Lupe. It's, Lupe, you got to care about your brother. That's your brother. That's also the unspoken rule, right? It's not just hitting. It's, hey, Lupe, we're a family. We care about each other. So think about what the unspoken rule is that is continuously broken. Think about what is the salt shaker that is continuously being pushed far away from the center. That's where I start as an administrator. Let me define lagging skills and unsolved problems before I dive in more into identifying these. A lagging skill, note takers, it's a social, emotional, or executive skill that the child has yet to master. Social, emotional, or executive skill that the child has yet to master. Something like expressing concerns or needs, for example. This is what this looks like in reality. Step into a first grade classroom and Janet has just called Byron a poopy head, whatever have you. And you're thinking, oh my God, Janet, so disrespectful. What's going on with Janet? Lagging skill actually could be expressing concerns. If you're Janet, Brian just dug into his nose. It's nasty. He didn't wipe it on her, but it's nasty. And my mommy told me that that's really nasty and you're not supposed to do that because your hands might have da-da-da-da, whatever have you. That's what's going on in Janet's head because she's 6, she's 5, and she doesn't know to express concern of, hey, teacher, Brian is digging in his nose and I don't want to sit next to him. She doesn't have the language yet to say, I don't feel comfortable in this situation and I need to move. I'm just going to say Brian's a poopy head. That's what a child does. Or it could be an unsolved problem. A continuous problem facing an individual that they do not have the tools to solve. For example, what to do when I'm finished working. And I can't tell you how many times this one pops up because you'll hear it. Hey, Joshua is very advanced and he needs more work to do. Yes, he does. And we look to the teacher to provide that extra work. Cool, yep, that's an option. But could we teach Brian what to do? Could we teach Joshua what to do when they don't have anything else to do or when they're finished working? Does your boss have to teach you what to do when you're done with your project? Mm-mm. Along the way, you learn, someone taught you, hey, this is what you do when you have an unsolved problem. This is what you do when you're done working. This is what you need to start thinking about if you're talking about that constant misbehavior with your child. In Green's book, Lost at School, and I showed an image of it. Lost at School, there are a few assessments that I would love for you to take a look at. They help you identify what the lagging skill could be related to that behavior that you're noticing. You're thinking to yourself, I just can't get this child to start on their homework. Could it be that they're having difficulty handling transitions? I just can't get Joshua to turn off the video games. Could it be that Joshua has a poor sense of time? Not that Joshua is just innately disrespectful. These are lagging skills that behavior experts will look at when a constant misbehavior pops up. Is this person having difficulty maintaining focus? Other examples, even for home, unsolved problem, waking up, getting up out of bed in the morning, completing the morning routine, getting ready for school. Identifying what the problem is, identifying where the skill lag is one of the first steps. One more before we get into an example. Or at school, shifting from one specific task to another. This is particularly hard for a lot of kids. I'm not done with my project yet. I'm not done with my food yet. What do you mean? How am I just supposed to stop this thing and move to the next one? That's a skill. We deal with it all the time as adults. We weren't just innately given it. It wasn't just within us. It was taught to us. We learned it. And when you're seeing a constant misbehavior, it's a skill. It's a problem that has to be solved. Not only solved, it has to be studied before it can be solved. It has to be studied. Now, you don't need a PhD in child psychology to study your child's constant misbehavior. Got a simple tool for you to track this, study it, and solve it. It's called an ABC tracker. Note takers, write that down, ABC tracker. Google search it. You'll find plenty of examples to help you along this activity. The ABC tracker is an acronym. The A stands for antecedent, what happened before. The B stands for behavior. The C stands for consequence. And let me pause right there. Consequence, sometimes it's a loaded word. I want you to think response. Antecedent, behavior, consequence / response. As you are studying your child's misbehavior, I want you to fill out these charts. Write the date, write the time, because that's important. It's very important. That's a step that people miss. Is it after lunch? Is it before lunch? Is it after recess? Is it before math? Where's the issue popping up? Because it's not just all day, every day, sometimes. Antecedent. What happened before the behavior? What was the child doing? Were they playing video games? Did they just come from outside? Were they talking to you? Were they eating? What happened right before that behavior happened? Of course, you're going to write down the behavior issue. And then what happened after, the consequence or response, meaning what did you do? What did they do after that behavior happened? Track yourself. Bobby decided not to do his homework, so I took away his video games today and he cussed at me, whatever happened. Hopefully that's not what happened to you. If it is, reach out to me, help you navigate that. But write down what the consequence is, what the response is, and eventually you should, let me back up 1 second. Wesley, how do I do that? Yes, you're doing this retroactively, meaning you're tracking all this behavior and these consequences down after the fact. I don't remember. I don't really know what happened. I can't really answer these questions. Record yourself. I said that before in this training. I'm going to say it again. Record yourself. Teachers, administrators, record what's happening in the lesson. We observe and give feedback. So we go back and say, hey, let's talk about your math block. Let's look to see how many students are engaged and how many students are writing. Let's talk about what instructions you gave as a teacher. So record yourself as a parent teacher as homework time is about to start. In the morning, when you're about to say, good morning, Bobby, wake up, let's get started with school. Record what you are saying, what's happening with that child. Eventually, your ABC charts will start to look like this. They'll be filled up with tons of data. And from that data, you can start to understand trends. Oh, it seemed like Samantha actually struggled more after recess than after lunch. Maybe there's something I need to do after recess to get them ready for homework. As you track it, you'll start to see that, it seemed like after he got done with math, he was more confident, but after he was done with reading, his mood changed. You have to study what's happening for a constant misbehavior. There's no click, one size fits all approach, and now everything's solved, standard for behavior. Trust me, done this for years. It's a process that has to be studied, then solved. Let me give you an example of a real child. And I've blocked out images of them just for their protection. But this is a real student. And I've just given an abbreviation of his name. Student AP, top student academically. I mean, high reader, math, everything. Great student. Very talkative, though, and sometimes disrespectful to peers. Not disrespectful to adults, but can be very disrespectful to peers, and was constantly in detention for talking. I managed detention, so I always looked at students' referrals of what got them into detention. So here is an ABC tracker that I would have done for this particular student. And this is something I just created from memory. That child right now is a teenager. This is years ago. But typically for this child, this is what I found as I began to track their behaviors. Antecedent first time. It's November 12th, 10 a.m. Students are working together in small groups on a complex math problem. They're working together in groups. AP yells loudly at JD, another student, about the project. Some sort of disagreement. JD yells back. They both ignore the teacher, get louder. The consequence, the teacher gave AP and JD a demerit, -5 points on their positive behavior system. Next day, 11:13, 12:30 p.m. Teacher asked students to pack up for lunch. AP is quiet, but not following directions by still reading and not packing up. Teacher redirected AP to pack up again, still doesn't move. Teacher gives AP a demerit. These are the behaviors that have caused AP to get -10 after -10. Now AP is in detention. This is the data that I had to go off of. Now I can start crafting, here are my solutions. Here are my interventions. Here's an intervention that I came up with, and I am more than happy to work with you to help craft the interventions that you need for your child. Lagging skill. This is the trend that I noticed after looking at that ABC tracker. One thing, AP struggles with expressing dissent calmly. He struggles with arguing without getting emotional. So as those students were working on that math problem and he and JD disagreed, oh no, it's this way. The teacher said that we have to write to the left. You don't understand. That's a skill. AP isn't a bad kid. That's a skill. And some of us know adults who still haven't learned that skill, right? That's a skill, not just some innate behavior issue with AP. That's a skill to be able to argue effectively. And if you disagree, go to work. Don't you have crucial conversations training? Don't you? Kids need that same type of training. The other part of the lagging skill, accepting non-closure. So talking about packing up lunch. AP, like I said, high reader. So he's in this book. He is in the world of whoever, Diary of Wimpy Kids. He's all in it. He can't stop yet. He hasn't gotten to a place to close. So that's another skill of when to say, I'm done. I need to move on to something else. As adults, oftentimes, we don't have that skill yet. And because AP doesn't have these skills, he's being labeled as a bad kid. He's in detention for the same skills, same things that many adults struggle with. Let me go back full circle. Is AP a bad kid? Is the teacher a bad teacher? Is the parent a bad parent? No. I talked in the beginning about my 0% expulsion rate. It's not because I let stuff go. No, I had detention. I had to suspend a kid every now and then, something crazy, but let's solve this. Let's figure this out. I'm wrapping up. Here are my interventions. This is what I did with AP. This is what happened when a student was constantly in my detention or my in-school suspension. Like, okay, something needs to change. So what I did for AP, worked with his whole family on this as well. We did 10-minute sessions twice a week for 6 weeks. That's typically the cadence that I did with any student's misbehavior. I did like a 6-week intervention. 10 minutes, very quickly. Usually we would do it during the recess time. Practice sessions on debate. I'm going to bring in another student, and today's topic is going to be anime. It's going to be a cartoon. Hey guys, who's the best character in DBZ? It's cartoon. Let AP share his thoughts, let JD share his thoughts, and let them argue. But I would record that session with parent permission, record that session, and then later on, look at it with AP and with mom. And this is what we've been working on with his ability to be able to disagree with others calmly. You can see, AP, this is where you messed up. I want you to try saying things this way. Next time when you get really upset, I want you to take a breath right there, okay? This is what happens when we get scientific about behavior intervention. Same thing applied for collaboration. This picture on the screen is totally 100% true. That's AP, that's JD. This is them working on some multiplication. Hey, guys, we're gonna work on some math problems. We're gonna collaborate together. AP, I know you're smarter than probably everybody in your grade level, but you need to be able to work with others. So you're gonna work with JD for the next 10 minutes on these math problems. You're gonna help him, he's gonna help you. Practice makes perfect, right? This is a philosophy that I want everyone to take home with them, because there's something at your house that's constantly happening. It's a lagging skill, or it's an unsolved problem. Continuous misbehavior must be studied, then solved. Well, with that being said, I've wrapped up my 3 philosophies. I hope you have a great day. I hope you get outside and do something socially distantly fun. And if you need anything else, you have our resources and contact information. You all have a great, great day. It's been a pleasure.